Oh, see, we're
Right.
live and Danny doesn't have a camera on. Look at that.
Well, it's,
Oh, and there he is.
all right. We are, I don't,
We're live,
I,
Danny, so you just got to
it,
eat it, man. You just got to eat it.
it's race. You know what? I'm going to claim racism on this one. All right.
Sure, sure, sure.
This is Market Fire Live, episode 85, coming to you on 1/24/24. You got the feedback going. What a,
Hey, we're professional show.
yeah, professional. All right. We're going to run down some stories today. We're going to talk about market activity and we're going to analyze it.
Sure.
Because a fun word I realized is that you could just apply analysis to literally anything. And all of a sudden, we are analyzing the market. We're not ranting uselessly, yelling into the void.
Eh,
So,
you know, it all is into the void a little bit.
yeah, fair enough. Okay. So, first story, couldn't be more excited. Vroom has run out of gas. Ah,
Danny loves his puns, as
sure
it
does.
were.
Listen, in another life, okay, in another life, I'm about 15 years older, and I started Drudge Report. And what was Drudge Report other than just a guy posting his own headline of someone else's article?
Right.
So, uh, so Vroom, which though for those of you who are uninitiated, pre-Pandy, there was pre 2020, there was this concept that people were going to sit at home and buy cars on the internet. And
Right.
venture capitalists were going to BlackRock, the Federal Reserve, other places, and getting multi-million dollar lines of credit for
Mm-hmm.
2% interest. And they were betting that money on the market. And
Sure.
as the venture capital model is pretty straightforward. We're going to make 100 bets. 90 of them are going to fail. Nine of them are going to do modestly, and one of them is going to knock it out of the park.
Exactly.
And
And
that's
they're gonna recoup all of the money they would have made on the 90 that they lose in
yep,
that one bet, right? So,
yep. So, and it's just nine of them cover most of it, and one of them just knocks it out of the park, puts them into profitability, and that's
mm-hmm.
how all of these funds run. Okay,
Exactly.
all of them. And then the events of 2020, everybody stuck in their homes, realizing that I live in a city and I can't get out of the city without being near other people, like on a subway or something.
Right.
Vroom, Carvana. There was another one also. I can't remember off the top of my head. And they all came up with this concept of we're going to leave our cars parked at the Mannheim Auto Auctions, the largest auto auction
Mm-hmm.
in the country. And we're going to just sell them retail and we're going to just deliver them to your house. Um, I for a while was a notary signing agent. So what that means is, whenever you needed something notarized, I would go out to wherever people needed it, and I would show up, and they pay me a fee for traveling and whatever. And I did. Couldn't tell you how many of these, where the dealer needs a limited power of attorney so that they can sign the
Right.
documents and get everything set up. And I would do a bunch of these because I refused to go into people's houses to sign their mortgages because that was also something I could have been doing. But I did a bunch of these. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. Now,
Well, by that you mean they paid you. It was irrelevant
yeah,
what you were doing. It's just the fact that they paid you. But look,
yeah,
the short end of this stick is they're laying 90% off of their staff,
and they're going bankrupt.
and they're going
They're losing.
bankrupt.
Yeah.
You,
Uh, and here's why that's funny.
to
Here's why
Danny,
it's
anytime you see a business fail or Danny loves a good scam or
no.
he always finds these things funny.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you why it's funny that Vroom is going out of business.
800 employees losing their jobs, but Danny finds it funny. Of course.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, I don't find it funny that 800 people are losing their jobs. I just find it funny that Vroom is going out of business before Carvana. How is that? But Vroom is what they actually are said here is that they are laying off they are discontinuing their retail business. However, they're ending their e-commerce car dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they own an auto financing arm, and they own a car sales AI. Don't know what
Sure.
that. yeah, it's called Car Stories or something like that.
Yeah,
They are keeping all
it's
those
a data
businesses.
analytics business, right?
Yeah.
Specifically around selling cars and which cars are more profitable than other cars at any given moment, yada yada.
So the reason Vroom is going out of business today and not Carvana is because Vroom is looking at their bottom line and saying, "Hey, our e-commerce business, we're never gonna pull up out of this nosedive. And if we do, and if we try to maintain the business, we're going to lose the part of the business that actually makes money, which is the financing and the data."
But
So
but think about this. You have a company, Vroom's what, 5 years old, maybe, right?
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? That again, Danny loves conspiracy theories, so I'm just going to throw this out there. What if you just did this on purpose? Here's what I mean by that. You have a company, Vroom. You didn't really want to own a company that delivers used cars. What you wanted is a bunch of used car loans to own, right? You wanted to be a bank and make all the money that banks do, right?
right.
So you come up with an idea like this that you're just going to get a lot of loans out there for products and then take that division and bankrupt it, right? And now you're left with profitable loans and very little to no overhead because they don't own anything. Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
mean,
They don't own any
it
real
does make
estate, they
sense.
don't own any cars, they're all gone, and all it is bank notes that we're just accruing interest on and payments on, right?
Yeah, so the company actually started in 2013. In 2015, uh, they acquired Texas Direct Auto, blah 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 blah, and rebranded it as Vroom. So basically, they went out and bought
Sure.
an existing business in a similar style, took that nationwide. Of course,
Right.
they took Texas Direct Auto, a Lone Star home company, local, and so this is the we're doing this live on the what is this, the 24th. So 2 days ago they ended their operations. They're HQ'd out of H Town. I didn't know this. I'm learning this right now as we're doing this very professional program where we study things ahead of time.
It is what it is. You know what I mean?
Eh,
Look, we
The Tucker Carlson Network calls, my friend. It beckons. It beckons to
Well, hey,
us.
I'm writing a Texas book. There's no way you can know everything going on in Texas at any
Of
given time, business or
course not.
otherwise. I will say this though: the only thing worse than Danny's, pun that he used at the beginning of the story is the story from where is this? Carscoops.com. It's got
Yeah,
a big sign here. The pun is from Vroom to Doom.
yeah.
That's the only thing worse than Danny's pun. Anyway, this is
Okay.
not surprising to me. I never
No.
thought the direct to consumer automotive industry was ever going to take off because it's just, quite honestly,
Hey,
buying a car without looking at it, without seeing it, without whatever, to me is a dumb idea.
hey, so the only person I know that has successfully owned vehicles without having picked them out is my mother and father. So the last four vehicles they've owned, my sister, my like other members of my family, I picked out the car, I picked out the color, I negotiated the deal. They just show up and sign papers. And the last vehicle my dad bought last year, he didn't want to drive it back to his house. So I drove it and he didn't drive it till like a week later. He's like, "Oh, how do you use this thing?" I'm like,
The only
what?
exception I ever thought of to this deal would be if I was, let's just say, a Toyota truck like enthusiast. That's so
Yeah.
I know I am going to buy a Toyota Tundra and it's going to be blue and it's going to be yada 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 yada. And
Yeah.
if I just knew those flat out and I knew
That sounds
exactly
really familiar, by the way.
and it was uh let's say it was a good deal, right? And
Yeah.
it was exactly what I wanted, then in that environment because I already know what I want. But
Right,
if
right,
there
right.
was any question at all, then it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work.
So I'll say this much. Doug DeMuro, who last year, the year before, sold for several bajillion dollars, like I think it was 80 million bucks, sold cars and bids. He went and bought on an auction service without ever seeing it,
Hmm.
Lamborghini Countach. And the thing is, yeah, like if you're buying a Lamborghini Countach and there's like two guys in the United States
Right.
who work on those cars, and the one guy said, "No, I've been maintaining the car since this guy's owned it. It's all this, that, and the other thing." What the heck do I know, right? I mean, like
Right.
I'm not going to know any better than that guy. But
There are auto auctions, like you just said, that are specific
yeah,
to classic cars, to whatever, and a lot
whatever.
of those
But
people buy them sight unseen. But that's a completely different thing than your average
right.
person.
So what is going to be interesting is so Vroom, which owns, like I mentioned, Car Story and United Auto Credit, they're going to maintain those businesses, and those businesses are going to make the money. And
Hmm.
you're probably not wrong. There was probably a dice roll where they go, "Hey, we're going to buy this other business. We're going to rebrand it Vroom, and we're going to it's going to be a separate operating unit, and we're going to go out there and get a bunch of credit, and we're going to loan on lend on a bunch of used cars,
Hmm.
and then we're just going to set off into the sail off into the sunset and file bankruptcy on the unprofitable operation." And here's the thing, though. A lot of people said they've had, same with Carvana, title issues,
Hmm.
because when you're like, listen, I know a guy who operates a business. All he does is car titles. That's it,
Well,
right?
you
He
and I have talked
manages.
several times that states have not made on purpose car selling easy, right?
Right,
You have dealerships as the model in between the manufacturers and the consumers and all
right.
of those laws. So title, state specific title laws have made this very difficult to do anything at a nationwide basis.
And if I was an enterprising person, I would go out there and open. And you can, it's not expensive, but it's not cheap. What I mean is, you can go out there and open a car dealership relatively easy,
Hmm.
and you can, meaning you can just go, if you go down to a mom and pop dealer and say, "Hey, I'm trying to open a license. I'm going to park one car here, if that, but I just need somewhere to hang the license physically." You can do that and go to a Carvana or any of these other people and say, "Hey, if you're in the state of Texas, I will handle your titles to make sure that they are processed properly."
And that's what it would take. It would literally
Yes,
take someone in all 50 states, a
correct.
title representative in every
Yep.
state, that they're the expert on their state getting it done. That's what
Right.
it would take to do this, but that would also take 50 different people. Some states will probably require you to have some kind of square footage, right?
Yep.
Like in
All
real
states.
estate
Yeah.
brokerages and stuff like that, you're
Yep.
required to have some sort of footprint, headquarters inside the state or whatever. So,
Right.
so you would have to put up quite a lot of money, and it would take it would take a contract like with Toyota to make
So
something like that
l-
work.
let me ask you this question then. Do you think there's an opportunity? And maybe we're breaking this wide open. Do you think, like, Tesla went the route of, like, going to, the indigenous tribes of this country and saying, "Hey, let us open up shop on your land, so that, because the state won't let us open a direct,
Right.
and you guys won't let us open a direct dealer. Let us open up on your land because you're a different jurisdiction within the confines of a state." What if we went to a Tesla or someone else, and we said, "We want to do direct auto sales," and we say, "Hey, listen, they're going to give you so much trouble. The state's going to give you trouble. You're going to have to be like Travis Kalanick. You're going to have to, fight these people in court. How about this? We're going to come in flat rate per file, and we're gonna act as your dealer, okay?
Hmm.
And you're going to open your direct franchise shop, and our dealer is going to lease one office from you inside your store, and
Sure.
we're just going to be there, and all we do is, there's one guy sitting there, everything else is done. They go over to the dealer, and he gets you signed out, so the transaction is legally kosher, and it is happening at a dealer owned by a
Right.
franchise. And ultimately, dealer franchise laws, nothing says that, I'm assuming anyway, I don't know this, but I'm assuming nothing says that Toyota can't go to their dealer and say, "We're going to own the land under the dealer, and you guys can own the dealership like a McDonald's," right?
Right. I don't know. There's probably a way they just haven't figured out yet, or they have, and it's just prohibitively expensive, right?
Probably,
And
probably.
that's something
But
that changes constantly over time, right?
we're not going to touch this right now, but Amazon struck a deal with Hyundai to sell direct.
Sure.
So yeah, and Cadillac is introducing itself into Australia, New Zealand with a direct sales model, and they're not going through dealers. So
Good for them. Didn't know that.
yeah, Absolutely. So moving on, we're going to be talking about Spirit Airlines, baby.
How does
The
this company still exist?
the Greyhound of the sky. So there's two
Uh,
parts to this story ultimately. The first part is Spirit and JetBlue were attempting a merger. Now, let me
right,
explain something. If I live in the South. Before that, I lived in the Midwest. I fly American, Delta if I have to, or Southwest. Southwest recently, our secret got exposed on TikTok, which is that if you're a Texas-sized individual,
yes,
they just give you a free seat. And we have gone
correct,
to great lengths to never bring that up on this
of
show.
course.
And then some influencer, a fatty influencer, went on TikTok and ruined everything because, yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, anyway. So Spirit was supposed to merge with JetBlue. That didn't happen.
correct. Well,
The
technically,
feds,
JetBlue was going to buy Spirit for $3.8 billion, right? Like,
right, which I thought was an odd choice. And originally, what happened was Frontier and Spirit were going to merge.
right,
Now, Frontier is based out of, I believe, Denver, Colorado. Uh, Spirit is based out of somewhere out of Florida. I want to say it's Orlando, as I like to call it. All those gals who work at Disney are special. Um, so uh, they were going to do a merger deal. And the thing about those two companies merging, it made sense. Frontier is garbage. Spirit is garbage. These are, of course, just my opinions. If
JetBlue
you're
is
like,
garbage. It just is.
JetBlue's actually,
It's better. It's
so
it's it's
it's
it's
New York
snooty
Southwest.
garbage, right? Like
That
it's
so like in the context of airlines, they're all garbage, but JetBlue actually had kind of a decent reputation. And here's what I would say: buying Spirit would only bring down its reputation. But Frontier, here's what I would say: Frontier and Spirit merging is like people from two separate trailer parks. It's like, okay, this is right. The like JetBlue is somebody who owns a one bedroom condo. It's a one bedroom,
right,
okay,
right,
but
right,
they
right.
own it.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it's a different. They're both scumbags, but two different kinds, right? So and Frontier was like, we have a double wide, and it's like, yeah, buddy, that's not helping. So
Well, the
that,
long and the short of it is they've been blocked from doing so, right?
yeah, and
U.S. District
they're
Court
appealing it.
came out and basically
Yep.
said the SEC and everything came out and said, look, you're not merging. And
Right.
really, if you read this right, they're not going to let them merge with anyone. And because the reason for them not allowing them to merge is they cite competition, right? We have
Right.
this thing in America that we don't believe in monopolies. Monopolies are technically illegal in the United States of America, with a few exceptions, even though you can argue that that doesn't really agree with funds that own 50% of everything and yada yada. But the
Right.
point is, in this particular case, we have, in America, we want the perception of non-monopolies, competition,
Right.
right? So if you
Right.
eliminate, look, there really is not a whole lot of airline companies out there. There's really not.
Right.
I mean, American
Correct.
Airlines, Southwest Airlines, right? And then where do you go from there? Oh, Delta, right?
Delta United.
Delta, United, and then everything else below that is much smaller, right?
I mean, in our lifetime, we saw the great. In your lifetime, you
Mm-hmm.
saw the deregulation of airlines
Correct.
under Carter, and that created this huge, metastasized the airline industry, and then it shrunk. TWA went out of business.
Right.
Pan Am, which was huge, went out of business. Continental got merged with, uh, United,
I
and
believe
then
so.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, because United adopted their logo. But the point is, man, um, that theory is cute, right? The government says we need more competition in airlines, but
Correct.
listen, if JetBlue or Spirit goes out of business, the other can easily step in and go to a bank and get a loan and acquire the assets of the other.
And that's what
And
they want to happen, because that is not a, again, perception is reality. That if that happens and that company goes bankrupt and then JetBlue buys all the assets anyway,
yeah,
that had nothing to do with them, right? They
right,
prevented it as much as they could.
correct,
That's not our fault, right?
right,
Which is what much more likely somebody out there, a fund or whatever, will, you know what I mean, give a company like this a lot of money to
right,
infuse enough capital to get their stock prices up, and then they'll take their money back plus all their winnings, and then
right.
5 years from now it'll all happen over again.
Let me tell you something. Here's what I think is going to happen. This is just me. I think Frontier eats it. No, sorry. Spirit is going to end up eating it. Is my view. And JetBlue is not going to buy its the assets. It's going to be Frontier, and then Frontier is going to sink itself because it is incapable of running such a large operation. And Alaska Airlines is going to pop up, and it's going to end up acquiring everything. It's going to rebrand as something else. But I think it's going because I think they're the only ones that can actually. So I'm just saying, we're
Yeah,
in a
you're talking
situation.
about, basically you're saying that you see two companies failing here, and then somebody out of the blue, like an Alaskan Air or a small company,
Right.
coming in and buying all of
So,
those assets.
so the timeline of events is 2022. Frontier and Spirit agree to a merger. Then JetBlue says, no, 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 Spirit, we'll offer you $3.8 billion and just buy you out. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Frontier and Spirit ran opposite uh, most of the,
Geography,
yeah, yeah.
geographically,
Well,
different parts of the country.
geographically, they ran different markets, they ran different routes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the benefit to that is you have these discount airlines running different routes. This is how Spirit expanded. They acquired AirTran.
Right.
I flew AirTran once in my life. They buy AirTran. They slowly convert all of the old planes over to the A380, which is what the what when Southwest famously only buys one kind of airline or one kind of jetliner.
Correct. It's one of the ways they lower costs. Right.
Yep, is we don't have a bunch. We have one set of parts. We got one airplane, and then it's smart. Herb Kelleher was a
Well,
genius.
and they buy gas futures, meaning that when gas is low or they perceive it low, they
Yep,
buy gas for years. So
yep,
that if gas goes up and doubles in price or triples in price, and
they're
American Airlines
protected.
is hurting and all these other, they've already bought the gas that they're using because they buy
Yeah,
gas futures.
smart. So regardless, I think there's another airline called Hawaiian Airlines. I think we're going to
Mm-hmm.
see all of these assets in the next because some of these loans, I'm sure they all have huge loans. These loans are coming due probably very soon because they probably got money throughout the pandy. They probably got money here and there. They're probably all debt laden. It's probably to the benefit of companies. The ultimate winner here is going to be one of these smaller airlines that is going to become a huge airline, and then it's going to be a real competitor to the big boys because it's going to just scoop, it's just going to vacuum up all of these assets, and then BlackRock is going to come in, and then it's going to buy them, and then it's going to say we're going to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then the doors are going to start flying off their planes
Yeah. Well,
like
look,
that's
if
been
if
happening.
two airlines crash, let's just, I'm sorry, no pun
Let's not
intended,
use that
knock on
word.
words. If two airlines bite the dust, right?
Yeah,
You could see one of these bigger ones come in, buy those assets through subsidies of some sort. Look, the American
right.
government is not going to let something, and we went through this previously when gas
Yeah,
prices went through the roof. Uh, Americans are not going to let the airline industry fail. It's not going to happen because they
right.
need it.
Yeah,
It just is.
Americans need a mechanism to get out of this country as quick as possible. So
Around the country, not out of the
yeah,
country. But yes, they've already proven. The government has already proved that they will subsidize something like airlines to create competition to keep them
Right.
alive and going and stuff like that. Now, I will caveat that to say that so far, every time that we've done that, it's been like this when we build out the automotive industry, when we build out the airline industry, when we build out uh, now
Dude, we
student loans, and we've built out the real estate industry. The American government, if you don't know, has made out like a bandit on all four of those. Meaning, whatever they bought to bail people out, they've gotten back in tenfold. In the 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 housing crisis, literally, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have written $1 trillion checks now back to the
y-
United
y-
States government.
yeah, and listen, I mean, we'll talk about this on a different episode, but dude, some of that money got stuffed into, like, if you want to understand why rent is so high all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
that money got stuffed into these what are called non-recourse debt loans that went on to buy multifamily, which then
Mm-hmm.
how does and multifamily guys are trying to 1031 their way, just like a guy traded from a paperclip up to a house somewhere.
One hundred percent.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna buy this 20 unit asset in Montauk, wherever, I don't know. We're gonna buy this 20 doors in freaking Lubbock,
Right.
okay? And we're gonna keep trading up until we end up with 100 units in freaking Uptown Dallas, and we're not gonna have on a non. It's we're in that industry, so
Right. Well, and
uh,
look, and this brings us really to our next story, because speaking of nice frauds, again, we get to one of Danny's biggest. Danny loves a good scam.
I
And
love.
this is definitely a scam. Not only is this a scam, this is a repeat scam.
No,
If
no.
you fall for this one, it's on you, brother. It's
Let me tell
on
you
you.
something. The first, so we're talking about the return of Fyre Festival. Now, uh, and here's my favorite part: the return of Fyre Festival includes the return of Billy McFarland. Now, I have an individual who I am familiar with. I won't call him a friend because he is currently under indictment for some really gross crimes. Now, if he was under indictment for financial crimes, I'd be like, oh, well, okay, so we can probably guess what he's under indictment for. He's
Hmm.
freaking disgusting as a human being. But we've often related Billy McFarland, like, you guys are like the same person. So I love seeing fraudster Billy McFarland bring back Fyre Festival. Now, I firmly believe that all of those individuals who got scammed in the first Fyre Festival deserved it. They
Well,
deserved it. You are idiots, and you deserved what you got.
see,
Okay?
this is where Danny and I kind of diverge on our opinions.
No, no,
I
no.
don't believe that people
Hey,
should be scammed or whatever.
fine. Can I ask you a question?
What's that?
Have you ever got onto a plane to a
God,
foreign country?
no.
Oh, okay.
No, no, no,
Have
no.
I done
I
that?
wouldn't have fallen for it first place. Look,
So,
there are
so,
people
so,
that their
so,
parents have too much money,
yeah,
okay, and they do things like this, and because of they can post it on their Instagram and their
right?
TikTok, and it's exclusive and whatever. Look, the people that set these things up know exactly who their, you know what I mean, their mark is, as we say, right, in gambling. They know exactly who their mark is. They and the Fyre Festival, first of all, did any of those people recoup their money? I don't think
No,
so. And not only, and guess what? All of the people that were there, or at least I should say 95 to 99% of those people, didn't need to recoup their money either.
no.
Okay? They just didn't. And those are the same people that are going to get scammed this time.
So here's what's awesome. He released at the end of last year the Fyre Festival 2 tickets went on sale. They had the first round of tickets, 100 of them sold out.
Of course they did. Of course they did. Because there are some folks in this world that their parents have too much money. And I keep using that phrase because the people that earn money that can do these kind of things don't
Don't do
spend
them.
them on this. What it
No.
is their
Yeah.
children that have never had to do anything.
Yeah. So the story was from the end of last year, but I saw a Instagram reel from Billy McFarland. By the way, Billy McFarland went to jail, okay?
Of course.
And during the events of 2020, he was released because he was a nonviolent criminal, and they ran out of space in the prison. So he's not in prison because of the Kung flu.
No, of course not.
And now he's
People
out.
could have died. If you
But
remember the articles about Fire Festival 1, these people were living in tents with no clean water or bathrooms or anything. Like,
And
this was a disaster of epic
and
proportions.
and they made 2 documentaries about it. In one of the documentaries, one of the guys infamously mentioned that he promised to perform a act on someone else if they could get enough bottled water to the. So I
This is
just
what I'm saying. Like, and this is
yeah.
somebody that a couple of
So
years later, or I don't know exactly how many years later it's been,
yeah,
goes around and says, "Hey, you know that it was my bad. Let me make it up to you for a cost, of course, but let me make it up to you."
so here's why I think. So I'm just gonna do a little a little pop psychology here. Here's what I believe is happening. I believe these people, you know, they have. I think the most expensive ticket was $3,500. They got $3,500 to burn, and they want to be able to tell the story of, dude, I went to Fire Festival too. I got syphilis and I got stabbed with a dirty needle. But
These are
let me
the
tell
same
you
people that
something.
go to Burning Man, and like, just whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Not my people. I'm not going to spend money on it. No,
No,
no.
and listen, I'm just gonna say, I don't wish anybody ill, okay?
Of course you do.
But if
But
something bad happens to idiots, I something it's I didn't make something bad happen to you,
Danny said
okay?
the same thing when we covered the 5G cream on Amazon. Okay, if you bought 5G cream that prevented the 5G from
Yeah.
entering your body, then you deserve to
Correct.
get scammed. That's Danny's opinion, right? Like,
Well, it's not that that you do deserve it, correct? But here's what I'm adding to that. Here's what I'm saying in addition to
what's that?
that. Isn't it better that your misfortune is entertaining to me and at least I can laugh at it? I'm sorry
I don't
something
know that
bad
I've ever heard of a more narcissistic statement than that.
no,
But
I hold on. I didn't inflict pain on you for my personal
correct,
entertainment. You
correct.
inflicted pain on yourself and I found it funny. Now, isn't it a God blessing that someone got something out of this terrible? It's a lose-lose situation, but at least I got to laugh at you out
Okay,
of this
my teenage
lose-lose.
boys make that same argument about watching bicycles fall downstairs. Okay, it's not a great argument. It's a true argument, right? Like, somebody, but it's not a good argument.
Well, your sons and I have something in common. My favorite thing to watch is people getting on their bicycles. There's a video, I think it's Germany somewhere. Someone rode their bicycle onto the highway, and a oil tanker just merged lanes, and they weren't on the highway anymore. They were,
Of course, you would seen that. Yeah, I'm not.
yeah.
I don't watch those things. No,
All
I'm
right.
good. My
So let's
children
jump
share
into.
them with me, but I don't.
Yeah, I tried to show other people these videos, and they're like, "This is horrifying," and I'm at a loss of like I have no words. I can't breathe. I'm laughing. It's so
uh,
flippin' hilarious.
that's right. This kid's in a cast. I'm trying to support him by watching his video 100 times. Like, come on, come on.
that that video of comedian Tom Segura just like
Yes.
his arm goes backwards. It's.
Yeah, your
I
mom's
didn't.
house is definitely helping people out there. Is
Let
all
me
I'm
tell you
saying.
something. I didn't tell Tom Segura to try to dunk a basketball. He did it on his own.
He did.
So
But your mom's house is definitely helping this type of person out. Is all I'm
correct,
saying.
correct,
Like
absolutely.
they are definitely helping certain people out.
Okay, so it says here that Microsoft hits $3 trillion in market cap.
Yeah. Microsoft is just behind Apple. Apple is still the biggest company in the world, right? The most valuation. But Microsoft itself has now hit, as of this afternoon, this news article came out, a $3 trillion market cap. Like, that is unbelievable.
That is impressive. Um,
And then when
And
you
it looks
say,
like
okay, Apple, Microsoft, and probably Amazon are now trillion-dollar companies. I mean, think about, look, this has only come about as far as trillion-dollar market cap companies. This has
right,
only happened in the last year or so, 2 years, right?
right.
This is not something that 5 years ago was a thing.
Well,
10 years
let
ago, it
me
was unfathomable.
right. So let me put it to people who, and there's inevitably going to be someone in the comments, someone on our live stream, whatever, they're going to be like, oh, capitalism has gone too far. There are poor
No.
people. There's homeless everywhere. And let me tell you something. When the Federal Reserve in the last since 2020 has printed 80% of all currency in circulation has been printed in the last 4 years, this is a consequence of that. It's not a consequence of value. It's a consequence of declining value. So, take that how you want to take that. It's really unfortunate that that's the situation. Um, but I remember I had a conversation with a conservative. I'm not a conservative, and I tried to explain to them, well, in market economics, which is not this country is not a free market country, but in a
Correct.
mixed market economy, asset prices going up is not necessarily a positive marker. It is oftentimes a marker of inflation. Now, I'll also say this, uh, you know, since 2020, the U.S. has, the real estate industry. We've gone from a envy of the world system where normal people can afford a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in 4 years, we've turned into Canada. It's like, this is how do you?
Okay,
No, because
first
I
of
know.
all right, as a Texan,
Yeah,
even though I'm a Texan first and an American second, don't you ever dare call something that I'm a part of, which
Canada
Texas is part of America. Don't ever
for
call me
now.
Canada again. Okay?
For now, okay.
Just
I mean,
just don't do
I'm
it.
just okay. Here's what I'm. But if you look at the metrics of how Canadians try to buy homes, and then you look at the U.S., you go, yeah. I mean, that is kind of like how it's going. But I think this is not indicative of Microsoft bringing the marketplace tons of value. Hey, every 10 minutes, my computer says upgrade to Windows 11. Allow us to inject you with this AI chip.
Look, you're right. A lot of people associate the markets with how well the country is doing, right? The problem with that is your average American owns zero stock in anything. Okay, so I think the I think it's somewhere in the 60 something percent owns zero stock. They have zero investments in the markets in any way, right?
Right.
So this is a milestone for the rich people, which
Correct.
only benefit your average person if you believe in the trickle down effect of money, right?
Which I,
Which
which
is
there
never
is no.
proven to be true, right?
Yeah, and the fun part about as a free market absolutist, um, I'm constantly like people who are opposed to free markets are like it trickle down economics is not real. I'm like, yeah, I know, I know.
No, but here's what is, I don't know to say whether it's a good thing or not, but when you talk about somebody like Microsoft or whatever
Yeah,
and the Gates family and what they do, and look, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there about Bill Gates and don't like Bill Gates and whatever, but from what I can tell on what is put out there in the ether, the man
yeah,
gives away a lot of his existing money. He's got plans to give away even more. His
yeah,
his ownership in Microsoft, the more money it makes, it seems like the more good he tries to do.
yeah.
That's
And
not
whether
true in some other companies.
that's entirely correct. Now, the same could be said about Elon Musk. Now, your definition of good really has to do with your socio-political philosophies, but I'm
Sure.
not going to disagree. And the basic essence of trickle down is that the wealthy are greedy and they want to get wealthier, and the only way they can do that is through investment into the marketplace, and that investment results in goods and services and jobs. And
Correct.
Elon Musk recently said this at an interview. He said, "Listen, if you had $1 trillion in cash and you were stranded on an island and it was about to be freezing cold, you would start burning your cash
Of course.
to stay warm. So that $1 trillion doesn't mean anything without goods and services. And that is a point, which is, I don't care what you say about, Amazon or Jeff Bezos. He's made my life better. Like being able to
Correct.
order stuff and listen. Yeah, it's like I know that we're all upset that people can't get good jobs, but somebody's making a living, whether it's a good living or not, driving around an Amazon van delivering packages. Listen, I know people who got that job and they are excited to get that job because they had no other opportunities. And
Correct.
this was it's a sucky job, okay? But they had no other job prospects. So people like workers should get better. But the point is, as we're going to talk about this next story or two stories from now in all over the country, we are seeing lower level entry level jobs just eliminated from the market, and that is going to keep happening the harder we make it to employ people. So
Well, and that actually is kind of part of this story. If you tag down a little bit of, okay, why is Microsoft still continuing to go up? Well, as you just said, part of AI is being used to facilitate Microsoft products. So that's been able to lower their expense on certain things. And that's led to higher profits, which leads
right,
to higher stock price, right? I mean, you're talking about a stock price that hit $405 a share, right? I mean, Microsoft probably in the 80s was what, $1 a share, $5 a
yeah.
share, right? So if you bought back then you're rolling in the dough now, right? So but it's the fact that there are at least three companies that are $1 trillion market share is just
It's
unfathomable
mind-boggling.
to me.
Right.
It
You know,
just is.
and before we're going to move on, but before we do that, it's good to point out that there are trillionaires in this world, and none of them are American entrepreneurs. They're oil
Yeah,
royalties.
it's the lady in Australia, right? The Australian oil tycoon lady that
Yeah, there's
inherited all the
yeah,
right or
but the
whatever.
ones I'm thinking of also wearing dresses, but in a different part of the world. I'm
Okay.
just hey, listen, and that's not disrespectful. If I am ever in the Middle East, I'm wearing the big white dress, dude. I'm doing it, bro. There's no questions. And I'm not, and I mean it, man. I'm gonna wear that thing. Dude.
You're talking
Can
about
you
royal
imagine?
families
Yeah,
in certain parts of the country that
the
aren't
Middle East.
UK, that aren't the UK, royal
Yes,
families that aren't in the UK.
that aren't in Europe,
Okay,
and
yes.
they're trillionaires. And I am saying I have no problem. I want to go to your country. I want to wear the dress. I want to hang out with the boys all day. I want to go four wheeling on the dunes. I
I'm
want to put the
saying
car up on the side.
nothing at all. I'm saying nothing. I'm all good. I'm
Here's
staying my
all I'm
fat
saying.
butt right here in
Habibi,
Texas.
invite me. I want to come
No,
to
no, I'm
Dubai.
staying right here in Texas. I'm not doing the
You,
accent. I'm not doing any of
you
it.
can stay.
I'll stay
You
in
can stay.
Texas. All
I'm
right.
going.
I'll
All
stay in
right.
Texas. All right. Our next one.
This is really interesting.
Yes.
Now, these last couple of stories, including the last one, these are big man's curations. Now, usually his curations are,
Well,
but
I
this
try
is
to
really
bring
good.
current events, meaning
Yeah,
news today, yesterday, things that's
yeah,
going on right now. Danny loves to grab these obscure stories
yeah.
that quite honestly, and to give him a little bit of a compliment here, Danny has a knack of grabbing stories that ultimately become a lot bigger. He has a tendency to be on the forefront of a story that 2 weeks from now blows up. Now, does that work out really well for our lives or our content sometimes? No,
Maybe
because
not.
we're ahead of the curve, not in the curve,
Right,
right? Not
right.
riding the wave, we're above ahead of it. But yes, so in this one, I found it funny that Netflix is making a 40-year-old cable, you know what I mean,
Play.
decision here,
Yeah,
play here, a Spectrum cable, right? Play here in it has now bought the rights, partnering and bought the rights to WWE Raw, which is currently on Monday nights, WWE Raw Monday nights, right? For a nice little dollar amount of $5 billion. Now, doesn't go into effect till even next year. Now, how would you like
Hey,
this? Vince McMahon, which still owns a lot of the
yep.
WWE, right,
He sold
franchising
a
stuff.
big chunk of it to sold a big chunk to WME, which also owns UFC.
Exactly. So, but you've got these companies out there that are now, this is just one product. WWE Raw,
Right.
by the way, is just Monday night product. It's not
Yeah.
WrestleMania. It's not all these other products.
Don't they got
It's
a Thursday night
they
program
have a
also?
they look wrestling, and this is no joke. Wrestling, that the WME, the WWE,
Yeah.
right, or whatever, has a platform every night of the week. It is a 7 day a week. Now, I haven't been
Yeah.
into wrestling since the Von Erichs and the
Yeah.
1980s, right, or whatever, but it's still a big time business.
And I hate to be political right here, but what I something that I loved living through was when Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment WWE came out and said, "Yeah, it's fixed." And I go, "That's exactly like politics. They could all come out and say it's completely fake. We're all running for office just so we can do insider trading legally, and we're making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and we're screwing you in the process." And both sides of the aisle would be like, "Okay, fine, but let's get back to 2024."
Well, but unlike politics, what these wrestlers go through, and if you've never seen the movie The Wrestler,
Yeah,
and you want to feel really sad about what you're watching, if you're a wrestling
I
fan,
don't.
is go watch The Wrestler, because it's like this behind the scenes scene of what they
Right.
actually go through,
Y-
their bodies go through, what they go through to get
It,
popular.
yeah. It's kind of like I had a friend who was a missionary in Cambodia, and he was telling me about the conditions at a Nike factory.
Ugh.
And I was like, "Hey, man, I already don't wear Nikes." He's like, "What do you wear, Adidas?" Because let me tell you about the Adidas factory. I was like, "Okay,
Let me ruin your entire
yeah."
existence, your shoe, what,
And
because you're a shoe head. Let me ruin that for you
yeah,
entirely.
I was a big sneakerhead back in the day. I've given them up. I'm a cowboy now. Wear cowboy boots. It's not because I'm too fat to tie laces.
They call
I'm
them
pretty
boot
sure.
pullers. They're man, you go.
Yeah. Um, Interesting side aside about that. Some kids at a California university were protesting, or I think it was in Portland, were protesting the conditions, and he said, "So Nike just moved the factory to a different third world country,
Sure.
and they said we're going to close the factory." And he said all the people who worked in the factory turned to street walking. So maybe the factory was better because the factory gave them one meal and and a place to live. And so the women who worked at the factory had to move into tents and were walking the street. Oopsie daisy, what's worse?
I know
So
nothing about that, but this is Netflix moving in
yes.
to the live,
So
right, live sports
yeah,
industry, which again, now this is not new, right? Hulu has,
Amazon did it with football.
Amazon has Thursday Night Football, right? They bought the
Mm-hmm.
rights to that. Peacock had one of the football wild card games, right?
Yep.
Which people were pissed about because they
Who
didn't
has
have
Peacock?
Peacock. They had to buy it, right, to get the game. So this is not a new thing, but it is new to Netflix.
Right.
Netflix is not a live event type of platform, but I think it's the showing the diversity that I think they believe they need to continue to grow.
Yeah, and let me tell you, um, there's this old saying comes from the Bible: "Nothing new under the sun." And so, what is happening in the streaming industry as a whole is, I think, in the next 5 years, we're going to see a massive convergence, and all of these smaller players. So, Stars, for instance, which was acquired by Lionsgate not too long ago, they're all going to end up like, "Hey, get Peacock, Stars," and it's all going to be cable again, right?
Right, because they're going to have to converge together to
Correct.
to to sustain. Look, Disney, for example, one of the largest companies on the planet, especially here in America,
Losing
lost
money.
its money, lost like crazy with Disney Plus, right? So if Disney loses money on a product, then it's difficult to make money on that
Right.
product, right? So, and we've already seen it. You know what I mean? Certain apps have come up and then either been bought out, or their library has
Yeah.
been bought because that company couldn't
What
make
was
it.
that Quibi? Quibi was my favorite one. Quibi came out of nowhere. Meg Whitman, former presidential candidate. CEO. They raised all this money. To me, it was the most boomer move of all time. It was literally like, the kids are all staring at their phone like this. We should just make the video go up and down instead of side to side.
Yeah.
What if we go get us a couple of $1 billion? And I don't know why they have that accent because no one who
No
did
one
that.
does. But again, look, you're right. I think it has to go that for it to
Right,
continue to survive and grow. And we all know it in business. You're either growing, you're dying, and I don't think
right,
this industry knows how it's going to continue to grow. Much like the cell phone industry, there's only so many people in America.
right,
There's only so many subscribers. So Verizon, T-Mobile, they're all fighting over the same subscribers.
correct.
Cable and these apps, they're all fighting over the same people.
Yeah, and like what a lot of people do, like my family, each of us bought a subscription to something, and we just share passwords across the
Danny
way.
does not share passwords with anyone because that would be wrong. So what
Correct.
Danny just said is not true.
That's correct.
He was speaking facetiously of what
Yeah,
he's heard other people do,
other people
but not
doing.
him.
I would never do that. That's a crime.
That's
It's not a regular crime. It's a hate crime. Because I
it's
hate it. Because I hate it when people share. So, but the point is, we're going to watch like, um, I often think of like what my grandfather lived through and saw in his lifetime. He went from no one has a television in their home to
correct.
everyone has a television in their home to everyone has a flat screen in their home. He passed away in 2011, but when he passed away, like we were already like everyone has their own cell phone, their own laptop. Like we had already passed the family computer stage of life to everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a laptop, everyone has a tablet.
I have to remind myself sometimes, and I mean it's 2000, it's January 2024, but
Yeah.
you realize, and I have to remind myself of this sometimes when we talk about technology and advancements. The first smartphone only became commercially available in 2008.
Really?
Yes, 2008.
Are you talking about like an iPhone?
Yes, like
Oh, the first iPhone.
the first smartphone,
You sure? Well,
2008.
okay. I'm
Okay,
not going to argue with you, but the point is,
that was 16 years ago.
yeah, that's, and the younger
That's not even a
generations will,
generation.
yeah, the younger kids will never understand what it means to like, oh, you should just pull the battery out and reset your Trio 650. Like that's not. They're going to say, what's a Trio 650 and how you can't take the battery out of a cell phone? It's like, what? So, all right, and now off to the wonderful sunny coast of California. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
both of us here are realtors. If you are from California and you are looking to buy real estate here in Texas, you can't. We're full. There's nothing here. You can't come.
That's according to
Uh,
Danny. I and my
that's
team
correct.
will take your money.
Yeah, I will also take your money, but I strongly advise you don't come here. So, Oakland, California,
Uh-huh.
so that's the Bay Area, is seeing for the first time in its history, California's very own In N Out Burger is closing a restaurant. One of its franchises is
Correct.
closing.
First time ever, it's closing its doors on one of its franchises.
And the franchisee, because I saw the tweet from the franchisee, and the tweet said, "We are not losing money. This is still a profitable location for us. However, due to the ongoing issues with crime,
Uh-huh.
we cannot secure our employees and our customer safety. And we cannot continue to operate as a business that, where the safety of our workers and the safety of our customers is not guaranteed." And they're probably, figuring out that maybe they're getting close to the end of their lease. I don't know. But
Look,
uh
if you can't, I'm going to read this quote because I think it's important because this is This is something we're going to deal with in the next couple of years. That
Yep.
companies are going to have to deal with in the next couple of years. This came straight from this article, straight from I forget, Warnick is his name, the guy that owns right In and Out or
Yeah.
whatever. Quote: Despite taking repeated steps to create safer conditions, our customers and associates are regularly victimized by car break-ins, property damage, theft, and armed robberies.
Yeah.
Who's
And
who is robbing? And okay, look, there was a time in the place in the 70s, 80s, maybe even into the 90s where
yeah.
robbing something, a corner store or whatever, you got whatever money was in the cash register because everybody used
Cash.
cash. But in
Right.
today's world, how much money are you getting from a cash register at an In and Out burger?
Yeah. I mean, and if you're doing smash and grabs in people's cars, like
What do
who,
you what do you what
like
is in
nobody.
somebody's car that's so valuable that you could get any
Yeah.
amount of money for in today's world?
Because like my cell phone is attached to my thigh, so it's not going anywhere.
Right.
What are you getting out? Like there isn't much in my car. Like you can, hey, if you steal my car, I'm not going to be sad,
There was a
right?
time in the 80s where stealing your radio was a big deal because radios, if you don't know, back in the 70s or 80s, car radios could get extremely expensive,
Right.
especially some of the really big, you know what I mean, sounding systems. And that's a really funny thing this week because there was the TikTok that went viral of a guy that, can you believe this? You can pull the radio out of the dashboard. Like, okay, that existed 40 years ago, you nut job.
Yeah.
It's not brand
Yeah.
new.
Right.
But anyway, so there was a time that breaking into a car, stealing car radio, it was such a bad thing that they made fun of it in Hollywood. It was cliche, right?
Well, no, like didn't uh Martin Charlie Sheen, didn't he, like one of his movies was they were stealing radios out of Porsches. That was a movie that
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen.
but that's what I'm saying because it made money, right?
Yeah.
It, Stealing your wheels at certain made money because they could go
Right.
down to the pawn shop right away. But what on a car in a car in today's
Yeah,
world is
most
worth going to jail for?
so like here's the other thing. Well, they're not going to jail. That's kind of maybe the problem. But what is happening is that people are you're like, so most everything has a serial number on it. Most everything is tracked. You go into 9 out of 10 pawn shops, they're not trying to take your hot merchandise like they would in the 80s and 90s. They're not looking the other way.
What good is a stolen iPhone in today's world?
Yeah, cuz it's
It's
going to get
locked.
locked. Yeah, your credit cards are going to get locked. Nobody has any cash. What are you actually getting? Like, oh, I got the spare tire out of this Range Rover. Most cars don't even have spare tires
Nope.
anymore.
Nope.
They have a freaking Fix-A-Flat can in the back. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you and me both. When I bought my wife a new minivan, and I'm like, "Where does the spare go?" And they're like, "It doesn't have one."
Same thing happened. My brother-in-law was out of town, and I went over to try and help with his flat, and they're like, "There ain't one in here." I was like, "Hey, I give up, dude." So another story from the same region of California is a Safeway is closing, and it's
Yep.
apparently the only grocery store in a certain radius now. And the community is complaining that Safeway is going to make Fillmore, California, a food desert. Hey, don't blame Safeway. They're having the exact same problem. They're going, hey, we can't lock up all of the shredded cheese. I mean, I've seen videos on Instagram Reels of and it of people pulling out a shopping cart full of meat and
Right.
loading it into the trunk of their Honda Accord
Mm-hmm.
and taking off, and the workers are just going, nothing we can do. And the
What
reality
can they
is
do? You're not going to risk your life over Safeway's right ham
meat.
and meat,
Right.
right, and stuff like that. And look, you and I covered at least one story. I think a couple of months back. This is happening in the entire city of San Francisco. Like
Yeah.
the inner city of San
Yeah,
Francisco,
yeah, yeah. Like
businesses
they're
are
already
leaving like crazy and closing their
right.
doors because they just can't deal with the theft.
So in the ideologues, the academics, there's actually a book out there called In Defense of Looting, and they talk about how looting is a form of social whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you want to pick on somebody, go down to UC Berkeley and find the professors who say, this is an act of economic something or other, and
Social
you're just
injustice, because the
yeah,
people that do this
you're
are
correcting a social injustice,
right.
but they're the exact same people who are crying because they're saying, well, now we can't buy groceries. Figure your own stuff out. Grow your own food, man. I don't know. You're
Right.
like, you can't. So, now this is happening all over California. This is happening other places. But here's all I'm saying. You ain't picking on a Whataburger in Lubbock, right? You could try to knock over a Whataburger in Lubbock, and you're not going to make it out. Is
Yeah,
my
I don't.
suggest my take.
Nobody's trying to arm rob Whataburger in Lubbock, Texas, or you know what I mean, or no. It
I
just
don't think
no.
you're trying to arm rob anything in Texas
I
because you just
no.
couldn't do
It's
that.
just not a smart idea. The odds
Yeah,
are a little against you, right?
yeah, yeah.
In that way. But I just think this was an important story because for a company like In and Out, much like McDonald's, much like look,
Mhm.
these are proven the ideals. If you
Right,
open up an In and Out burger, you're making money. If you
correct.
open up a McDonald's, you are guaranteed money. Chick-fil-A,
I
guaranteed money.
I am a dyed in the wool Texan. Okay, there are two or three in and outs around me. There is a line at every single one to, from the time they open until the time they close. There is a line.
Correct.
Okay, now I may or may not like their burgers there, but they don't say my pleasure like they do at Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A gets my money.
Burgers aren't bad. Fries are
Yeah,
awful. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And you got to do both decent if you want Texans
yeah,
to eat it. But
yeah,
here's the deal. They still make money. Here in
yeah.
Austin, Texas, across the street from Whataburger, they still make money, which is the
Correct.
point, right? And so for them to go through and have to close one, it
First in
has
their
to
history,
be insane.
the first time in In-N-Out history. This is a 20-year-old In-N-Out. Now, the first time I went to In-N-Out, I was 25 years old, so it's over 10 years ago. It was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and
Yep.
I'd gone there
That
with
was
my
my first
entire
In and Out, too.
yeah, and it was such a big deal. And then when I moved to Austin, I found out they had In-N-Out. I went one time, and then I was like, never eating here again, um, because it's like, for what? Like the shakes are good. I like the strawberry shake, but
Yeah, but it's hard to screw up a shake, right? And
yeah,
again, their burgers, if you eat it right then, hot,
yeah,
greasy, really good. But their
yeah,
fries are total garbage. And
they
it
are.
doesn't travel well, right? You take
Now,
it home and
now,
heat it up, not as good.
now, as a dyed-in-the-wool Texan, I'm also going to say something that's going to earn me a lot of hatred. Whataburger's fries are equally bad.
No, no, dear God, don't you ever say that ever again because that is not true. Okay? Not true. Your personal opinion, and you are allowed to have it, but God dang you, not, no,
now,
absolutely not.
now their onion rings are pretty good.
Onion rings are good. They're not,
Yeah.
but no.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Let's
Now, you
fine.
say anything about their fancy ketchup, you and I might have to stop the show.
No, no, no,
Okay?
no, no, no. I listen. There is a staple in my house, in any house I've ever lived in, since my tenure as an Austinite,
Yeah.
has been, and I was out of state for a brief period of time. I was flying back to Austin for work, and I was taking large things of Whataburger spicy ketchup back to the north, and my family's
That's
like,
right.
"What is this?" I'm like, "If you mess with my ketchup,
Yes, them's
you will
fighting
feel
words.
pain." You know
Them's
another
fighting
thing I
words.
like? If you go get a fountain soda from a Bucky's, Bucky's has its own cane sugar fountain soda.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and the ability to add vanilla,
Mm.
cherry, whatever to
It's
anything.
unstoppable.
Yep,
I'm
but
not going
Bucky's
to
is an entire
apologize.
different conversation.
Bucky's
Entirely
is
different.
a nation.
All right, our last story, Danny. What do we got for our last story?
Oh, I love this.
I knew
I
you would.
love
I
it.
knew that you would love this story.
So, the Stanley Cups, not the Stanley Cup. Okay, the manufacturer Stanley has repopularized
Correct.
as because the 65, they call the 65 Stanley stainless steel drinking cup.
Uh huh.
It went viral, but correct me if I'm wrong here. Starbucks did a deal where if you buy the pink one,
Yes.
you get something.
Well, no,
And
it's just that a limited look. Anything with Starbucks, right?
limited edition.
Limited edition, whatever. And that's what started this whole thing, right? Starbucks, their pink Stanley that was made specifically for Starbucks, which
Correct.
then ignited the whole Stanley Cup thing. And
Yeah.
now, all of a sudden, go ahead, Danny, because I know you love the story so much.
Bail for a woman accused of stealing $2,500 worth of Stanley Cups, set at $150,000, must include GPS monitor. Delaney Garcia Lopez, which, by the way, if you're single, my information,
Danny does like the Latinas.
yeah, and
Well,
I
she's
like
23,
criminals.
Danny. You like them young and Latina.
Whoa, 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 whoa! All right,
She was driving drunk with,
yeah,
with the Stanley Cup. This
listen,
is obviously a smart lady, y'all.
yeah, no, this is obviously a lady of good taste because she's now listed all of my favorite things. All right, so she has to wear, an anklet. Big bummer for her. But
Sure.
here's something interesting, and we didn't get to talk about this on our show before. Um, and the reason I'm speaking in such a staccato manner is because I am looking up her picture. We have a winner, my friend. We have a winner. I will
Of
be
course, Danny
posting
would do
her
that.
bail. Uh,
$150,000 bail for
yep.
stealing $2,500 in Stanley Cups. Now,
Now, let
look,
me make something very clear. I
go
will be
ahead.
posting her bail. I will be
Well,
posting her bail.
okay. But look, you, just to put this in perspective a little bit, okay? You
Yeah.
say $2,500 worth of cups. It's really on the market. That's retail.
Yeah. So
$2,500. These are
Stanley
not what
monitors.
you're putting them out on eBay. Right
Right.
now, if you want a Stanley Steel pink like Starbucks cup that started
Yep.
this whole trend, it's going to cost you $300, $400, $500. Okay. At one time, I think the height, if I read the article right a couple of days ago, at the height, someone, you know how they track the most expensive thing sold on eBay, whatever. I believe somebody paid a little over $2,000 for a Starbucks pink Stanley cup.
Correct. And that the buyer of that pink Stanley Cup is one of the first purchasers of Fire Festival 2 tickets.
They
It's
also purchased simultaneously a
yeah,
Fire Festival 2 concert
it's the
ticket.
same idiot that
It's
we
the
were
same
discussing.
idiot. It
It's
is,
the
right?
same
Like,
idiot. Now,
who cares that much about a Starbucks cup to pay
so
that kind, or even this $300? There are several of them right now posted on
yeah,
eBay for three, four
I
hundred
I saw
dollars.
I
Who's
saw an
buying
Instagram
this?
I saw an Instagram reel of it was here in Texas where it was, I think it was Kohl's. It looked like a Kohl's to me anyway. Um, who's been inside of a Kohl's in the last 10 years other than to return something from Amazon? So
I don't know.
I
I'm sure
haven't.
my wife has, but you know.
Yeah. Well, Mrs. the big man. Yeah. So uh and they had hired off-duty cops because it was such a frenzy. They had to give people tickets and a number, and you had to wait in line, and they said this is how many you get because people were getting trampled. Now, do I think people who are this stupid, maybe, do they deserve to get trampled? Maybe not. Do they deserve just a little to get the wind knocked out of them?
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Do they deserve a little pain? Right.
So
But look, at
so
the end of the day, it
Miss
is capitalism, though, right? I mean, at the end of the
eh,
day, it is like. But here's the. Okay, this is the difference between what I believe in capitalism and what Danny believes in capitalism. Danny believes in capitalism in its truest form, meaning you shoot Bambi's mom and sell her, you know what I mean, deer meat for money, right? Where I'm of the idea of capitalism that you can still have morals and be
yeah.
capitalist, meaning that if you buy a Starbucks cup and then turn around and sell it on eBay so that somebody can't really have it, you are, excuse my French, you're an asshole. Okay?
Okay.
Again, you're allowed to be, right? That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. It's the same people that went to
Hey man,
Costco and bought all the toilet paper during the
the
you know what
2020.
time, right?
Yeah.
And then
So
turned around and tried to sell it on eBay
okay,
for.
let me tell you something. Okay, I personally, all right, sometimes sell Japanese wholesalers Bucky's merchandise. They also wanted the Trader Joe's tote bags. I don't know why. Okay,
But
but
you're
they
not
wanted them.
harming anyone in that. You're not
That's fair.
harming anyone in that.
So here's something interesting about Stanley. I did want to cover this on the show, and we didn't get the opportunity to do that. someone had a busy schedule. So this happened a while ago, but Stanley, there was a woman on TikTok who went viral because her car, her EV, burned, gone, and she's at the lot.
You and I love those stories.
Yep, she's at the lot going to get her stuff out of it, and the only thing that is not burned is her Stanley mug, her
Of
Stanley
course.
steel. Yeah, so she puts that out there and she opens the door and look at this, and it went viral. And then the CEO of Stanley said, "Hey guys, we can't do this every single time something bad happens, but this time we're gonna replace your car. Let us know, whatever." Dude, if you want to understand what ignited this frenzy, and when a company like Stanley ends up on the reseller market, like companies like Rolex always say we hate the reseller market, but then they do everything they can do for their products to hit
Correct.
the reseller market.
Correct.
They create an environment conducive to producing resellers. So Stanley did something like that one act, put them back in contention
One
for
partnership like
yep,
Starbucks, right?
yep, that's
And
all it took.
look, Stanley's been around for an extremely long time.
Long time.
Okay, like it's funny to me. Again, this is kind of a generation thing. I find it hilarious that millennials and Gen Zers think they discovered something when it was really they discovered something that was been around for 50
Yep.
years.
Right.
It's just now coming back, recycling. Stanley, look, their green Kelly green stainless steel mug
Yep.
was used by every farmer in America in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
All right, and those still things were handed down to their children into the 80s, okay?
Right. Yep.
And then they become really uncool, right?
And then you use it for target practice, and then you go, "That was stupid. If I just waited another 20 years, some guy named Omid would create eBay, and I could have vintage original
Of
1950
course.
Stanley, and I could have sold it for $50,000 and
Yeah.
bought myself a new truck."
Yep.
But I think that kind of wraps up our show for today. Do you got anything else, big man?
No, I think we've talked long enough. I will tell you this: Danny and I are going to be back on Saturday afternoon,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
I think Central Time. What did we decide on, Danny? What time on
2
Saturday?
to 4. I think
2 to
we said
4
2 to 4.
Central
Yeah.
Standard Time, American Time, Texas Time. 2 to 4 Texas Time. I'm just going to call it Texas Time from now on.
That's what it is, though. There's no other time.
2 to 4 Texas Time on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. I do have a tip of the week. I just want to remind everyone out there that the majority of society and the majority of people that you come across are unimpressive dolts. They are stupid. And if you're just slightly smarter than them, you could rule them.
As always, Danny's opinions are Danny's opinions, not the opinions of the Big Man or Market Fire podcast.
Yeah,
All right, folks.
right.
We'll see you Saturday. Talk to you soon.